The advice offered in this hour is for guidance only. You should always seek your own independent legal and financial opinion. This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation. The Consumer Hour with Dean Dunham.
Good evening, everyone. It's 9:03 p.m, Sunday, the 2nd of May. Daniel's away this week, so I'm bringing you an additional LBC Consumer Hour. Now, as you know, if you listen to Daniel regularly, he does not like parking ticket questions. In fact, I believe he bans those questions from his hour. I don't blame him. They can be boring, but so many of us do get parking tickets every day. In fact, the Independent Appeal Service for private tickets has released some data this week that says that 48,000 tickets are issued every single day. That's a huge number of tickets. So in light of this, I'm going to be joined after 9:30 p.m. this evening by a man who's made it literally his mission to help consumers fight parking tickets. So if you have a parking ticket question, they're not banned this evening. I'm asking you to throw me in these questions. You can text them, email them, you can call me. I'd rather you did calling. We can ask you some questions about that if you do so. But if you've got a question about a parking ticket, perhaps you've got one, you want to know, can you appeal it? Are you going to be successful? What are the grounds of appeal? So forth. There's many questions like this. If that's for you and you've got one of those questions, get in touch this evening. Or if you've got any other legal issue and you need some free legal help, this is your hour to get in touch and to get that help, again, for free. So if that's you and you need some help, give me a call now, 0345 6060 973. You can WhatsApp your question to exactly the same number. You can text 84850, or you can go onto X and post your question to @LBC, or even to me direct. Let's go straight to your calls. Ben in Stafford. Good evening, Ben.
Samsung within 30 days. T's and C's apply.
The Consumer Hour with Dean Dunham on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
If you're a driver, parking tickets can be the bane of your life, especially tickets issued on private land. Now, 48,000 of these are issued every single day here in the UK, and that equates, believe it or not, to one ticket being issued every 2 seconds every single day. Now, with this in mind, joining me now to answer your parking ticket questions is Scott Dixon, a friend of the show and motoring expert from the website Complaints Resolver. Good evening, Scott.
Good evening, Dean.
Scott, let's start by debunking a real common myth about private parking tickets. So what I mean here, obviously, for those listening, is these are tickets that are not issued by a local authority. These are the tickets that are issued by private companies in relation to when you parked on private land. Yeah, I think it's probably the majority. And often these come with all sorts of threats. They look official, these documents. They plaster them on the front of your windscreen. They've got various different names, but they look like they're very official. But Scott, the real position is something quite different, isn't it?
That's right, Dean. And the biggest myth I hear is, I've been fined. And you haven't. Private parking tickets are not fines. They are invoices called parking charge notices for an alleged breach of contract for parking on private land. And only councils can issue fines. And they are called penalty charge notices for infringements on public highways. And they look the same, and obviously there's a reason for that. And that's where the confusion often lies.
So, Scott, we've got loads and loads of questions coming in. I'm guessing a lot of these are going to be about private parking tickets because people, they don't realise what you just said, actually. Most people do think they are one of the same, but as you've just said, they are not one of the same. They are very, very different. No doubt we'll come across this a little bit more as we're answering some of these questions. Let's go to a caller, Alex in Wimbledon. Good evening, Alex.
Good evening.
So what's happened? You've got a parking ticket, have you?
So I have a parking ticket in a car park that has blue badge parking spots, but they were full. So I had to park in a non-blue badge parking spot. And what happened was the ticket machine clearly states that blue badge holders free at any time except when loading ban is enforced, which is the same thing that is written on every residential street as far as I know. So we parked up. I clearly displayed the crux of the issue, I've clearly displayed the blue badge. What I didn't display is the clock. So, but what I didn't realize is that on the board, they also have a board, and on the board it said, "Oh, if you are parking on a non-blue badge parking spot, therefore you're limited to 3 hours," which is contradiction to what is written on the actual ticket machine. That's why they issued me a ticket. So I wanted to know if I can contest this and if this is legal to do it, because there seem to be two different rules, one on the board and one on the actual ticket machine.
Yeah. Okay, well, I've got a view on this, but before I give you my view on this, Scott, what do you think about that?
It's an interesting question, and it comes down to contract law, as you know, Dean, and where there's confusion that lies between the signs, that's the angle to go in on. So, you know, if one sign says something different to another, and it comes down to the Consumer Rights Act 2015, in my view, and you know, I would appeal on the basis that because the signs are unclear, and just put that to them, and just say that you wish to appeal because, you know, you weren't able to correctly interpret the signage.
I do agree.
Sorry. I've already appealed it once, but they wrote me a letter saying that, okay, so next time you will get, this is apparently was not an official appeal, but they also have another one, which is called an official appeal, after which you can still, even if that is rejected, you can still contest it with an adjudicator. So should I go for it? Because I'm really concerned about getting getting the full whack of £110, being paid.
Alex, let me just extend what Scott said there, because I do agree this is a Consumer Rights Act matter, but let me just take it one step further. First of all, yes, my view is you should appeal, but here's why I'm saying that. Under the Consumer Rights Act, one of the provisions says that where you've got conflicting terms or where there are two different interpretations of something, this is kind of both, because you're saying in one place it says the rule is one thing, and in another it says it's something else. So it's conflicting. So what the Consumer Rights Act says in those circumstances is whichever interpretation or whichever rule is more favourable to the consumer, which of course here is the one with a longer period of time that you can park, that's what prevails. And that's what you need to cite in your appeal. So as Scott says, it's a Consumer Rights Act matter. And as I say, you need to cite that when you go back to them, because that's where your appeal will lie. My view, and it sounds like Scott's view as well, is you ought to be successful with that because, that's what the law says. They cannot be giving you conflicting and confusing information. By the way, that's been around for as long as I can remember in relation to parking tickets. If the signage is not prominent or the signage is not clear or it's confusing, that's always going to be a good route of appeal. Alex, good luck with that. Please let me know what happens. Myself and Scott, and of course all the other listeners, are going to be very interested to hear what happens next with that. Let's read a quick text. Robin in Scunthorpe says, a few weeks ago, I pulled into a car park but found it was full. I waited around 10 minutes to see if a space would become free, but it didn't, so I left. I have now received a parking ticket through the post, as apparently a camera picked me up in the car park. Surely I do not have to pay this. Scott, what do you think?
This is a common problem I see all the time, Dean, and Robin's right. This falls under what's called the consideration period, and you're allowed up to 10 minutes when you enter a car park to read the signs and terms and conditions of the contract and decide whether you want to stay or not. And it's covered by the single code of practice that parking operators are meant to adhere to. And these tickets that are automatically issued based on the camera times that clock you entering and leaving the car park. So my advice, Robin, is don't panic, but equally you can't ignore it. And simply appeal and state your case at the contract. And you mentioned buzzwords, Dean. The buzzword here is frustrated by impossibility. So the contract was frustrated by impossibility because you couldn't find a space, and this falls under the consideration period. Ask them to either cancel it or provide you with a code so you can escalate it to the second stage appeals process where it should be cancelled. And finally, don't worry if your appeal fails at the first and second stage and you start getting debt collector letters. Only a court can enforce payment, and that's if you ignore a letter before claim or court papers and they secure a county court judgment.
Scott, the great thing about this, of course, is when Robin goes back with that answer, they will not be expecting Robin to know any of that information, to be citing any of those things. And you know, I talk about buzzwords all the time because those are the words that are designed to make here the parking operator sit up and think, oh, God, Robin knows the deal here. We better do something. So, great advice, Robin. Hopefully you'll take that advice. Sounds like you're going to be okay. If not, again, call me back next week. Let me know what happens, good or bad. Hopefully it's going to be good. Let's go to another caller. Michael in Streatham. Good evening.
Good evening to you too. I'm a peripatetic music teacher, and I was working at a school, and the restricted hours on the street which I parked said they were between 8:30 and 10 and 2:30 and 4 p.m. So I parked I parked at 11 a.m. I came back to the car 12 noon, and there was a parking ticket on there. And when I appealed it twice, they rejected my appeals and said that there was a single yellow line that was there and that counteracted the signs that were above it. So they said to me that I should have looked on the street to see the timings of the single yellow line instead of looking at the signs about the restricted hours, you know, that I mentioned. So I appealed it twice, and then I went away to work as a musician for a couple of weeks. I've come back now, and it's gone to court, and they've given me a letter saying that it's £250.
Wow. So, Michael, are you telling us this evening that basically this was confusing? There was a conflicting information, conflicting rules, if you like, and that's why you found yourself in this position?
Indeed, I parked directly under the sign that said the restricted hours are between 8:30 and 10 and 2:30 and 4. Yeah. And I parked at 11 a.m., came back to my car at 12. I have a photograph of the car.
And the signage?
And the signage directly above the car. But they said a single yellow line rises above that sign.
Yeah. Okay. Scott, what do you think?
I would stick to your guns on this because I think it mirrors what we discussed earlier with confusing signage and terms and you know what you said earlier, Dean. So I would stick to your guns and fight it. You know, if you think you're in the right and you know the signs and the yellow lines, they're conflicting. And maybe do a Google search as well to see if other people have had the similar problems.
I have, and there's been instances like this before. You know, I've got to sign a form now that asks me to say a witness statement that I didn't receive the other form while I was away working. So I've got to sign that now and possibly go to court.
Yeah. Michael, I agree with Scott. I would stick by my guns as well. There is a slight difference with this question to the previous caller's question where there was some contradiction, is that this one is not a private parking ticket. This is public. So therefore, the yellow lines come within public highways laws, and technically the yellow line does trump the signage. So they do have a point. But if you can, in my experience, when I've dealt with things like this previously, where people have been able to go back and say, look, your signage has caused great confusion, not just to me, but to other people. Therefore, the average road user would not have been clear, I should say, to the average road user what the rules were. Then in those circumstances, there can be some wriggle room, and they may well come back and say, okay, we agree. So go back with all those photographs. As Scott says, stick by your guns and see what they say. What I wouldn't be doing is going any further with it if they say no, because I think you'll find on a technicality they are right. But where there is confusion, my view is they should not be pursuing you any further. So please do, push that, stick by your guns, as Scott said, show them all the photographs, and let's see what they say. And again, please do come back and let us know, because I'm sure many other people have had exactly the same thing as you. It'd be interesting to know, actually, how many other people don't realise that the yellow line trumps what the rules are, even if it's just above the yellow line. It seems crazy to me that would be the case, and that the sign doesn't say, or recognise that there's a yellow line right beneath it, and therefore the rule is going to be slightly different. But if other people have had the same thing, please do let us know. Scott, don't go anywhere. We'll be coming back shortly with more of your parking ticket questions. So if you've got a parking ticket question, give us a call now, 0345 6060 973. More of your calls coming up next here on the LBC Consumer Hour. You're listening to Dean Dunham, and the time is 9:46.
The Consumer Hour on LBC. Text 84850.
So we're talking about a subject this evening which is normally banned on a Saturday night by my friend Daniel Barnett. He doesn't like parking ticket questions. Again, I don't blame him, but we're dealing with them this evening because apparently there are 48,000 of them issued every single day, and that's just in the private sector, by the way. So I know many people listening to this show this evening, and many people who are listening to my normal slot tomorrow evening have had a parking ticket recently, or perhaps today, or are going to get one very shortly, because it seems to be 48,000 of them are dished out every single day. I think I said at the top of the show, that's something like one parking ticket every 2 seconds every single day. Therefore, this is information you're going to need to know. So if you have a parking ticket question, give me a call now, 0345 6060 973. I'm joined this evening by a friend of the show, Scott Dixon, who's also a motoring expert, and he's on a bit of a mission in relation to parking tickets to help consumers. That's why I thought it was good to have him here this evening. And Scott, welcome back to the show this evening. Scott, many people get parking tickets in supermarket car parks. What's your top tip in relation to that?
Well, the easiest way to cancel a parking ticket in a supermarket car park, or a gym for that matter, is to speak to the landowner rather than engaging with the parking firm. So, for example, if you get a ticket at a Morrison's supermarket car park, speak to customer services or the manager, ask them to cancel it, and get confirmation that they will cancel it in writing at the time. Because, as you know, verbal promises, they mean nothing if they're not confirmed in writing. And don't take it verbally as confirmation that it's going to be cancelled. And if you hit a stone wall with customer services, Google search the supermarket telephone number that deals with private parking tickets. Explain what's happened with a receipt or bank statement as proof that you were a customer, and just ask them to cancel it for you. And more often than not, they will, Dean. And that's a quick and easy win to bypass the parking firms.
I suppose the other thing as well is that at the end of the day, you're a customer of that supermarket. You've been in there probably shopping. Therefore, if you go there and appeal to their better side by saying, I am your customer, and start it with that, as a matter of good customer service, they ought to be trying to help you out, don't you think?
I totally agree, Dean. And citing customer loyalty and just being nice about it, will often elicit the right outcome. Yeah. And don't go in all guns blazing and with a sense of entitlement. You are appealing to that goodwill and better nature.
Absolutely. I suppose we should say, by the way, that, of course, you can get parking tickets in other supermarkets, not just Morrison's, Tesco's, Asda, Aldi, all of them. We're not picking on Morrison's here this evening. It could be any supermarket at all, but it is very common. I do hear lots of people coming to me saying, I went to XYZ supermarket and I got a ticket. What can I do? Well, there you go. Scott's told you now. Go straight to the supermarket. Try and appeal to their better side. Tell them you're a customer. Hopefully that will deal with the matter. Scott, I got a message here from Erica in North London. She says, I keyed in my number plate incorrectly when buying a parking ticket and have now received a parking fine. Do I have to pay this as I clearly paid for the parking? Scott, this is really common, actually, because now that we've got these machines where you put in your number plate, it's so easy to get it wrong, isn't it? So what should people do when they do get something wrong here?
This happens all the time, Dean, as you say. And the good news, Erica, is that you don't have to pay the full amount. Mistakes happen, and I often see cases like this with parking apps. And the keying errors, they fall into two categories. So you've got minor keying errors and major keying errors. So a minor keying error would be, for example, inputting a 0 instead of the letter O. And the single code of practice says that these private parking tickets, they're not fines, they're invoices. They should be cancelled if there is evidence that you've paid the parking fee. And a major keying error would be, for example, inputting the wrong registration number. And parking apps often default to the previous registration entered, and that's also classed as a major keying error. So follow the appeals process within the deadline, attach proof of payment, explain what's happened, and remind them that payment was made for the correct time and location. There's been no financial loss. It was a genuine keying error. And you should be offered the opportunity to pay £20 to cover the admin fees for major keying errors. But more often than not, you're not offered that opportunity. So if that's the case, escalate it to the second stage and ask for what's called a poplar code if they're members of the British Parking Association. And if it's the international parking community, escalate it to the Independent Appeals Service. And the success rate on popular appeals is over 50%. So, keying error, it's a slam dunk, as you would say, Dean. So it's pretty straightforward on that.
Yeah, and those stats, I mean, these are new stats from Poplar that have just come out, that they over half of the tickets are now appeals that are upheld, so they're in favour of consumer. I understand, Scott, that's an increase from the previous period. That ought to give people confidence that actually these appeals can win, because often people will come to me saying, I'm not going to appeal because I won't win. But that's not the case, is it?
It's definitely not the case at all. And there's a trade association conference every May in Coventry that I go to. It's held by the British Parking Association. And I've heard from the horse's mouth that 4 out of 5 private parking tickets are paid without question, regardless of whether they were issued fairly or not. Yep. And that's to take advantage of what's called the discount, because people seem to think that it's a fine and not an invoice. So definitely appeal it if you think it's been issued unfairly, because the chances are tilted in your favour. You've got more than a 50% chance of winning.
Yeah. Let's take another call. Walter in Hemel Hempstead. Good evening.
Good evening, sir. I'm a PCO London cab driver. Now, I dropped a passenger off in a private car park. I was in and out in 8 minutes, as has been clearly stated. I've appealed it. I've sent proof of the job from the from the Uber app. Yeah. And they're still declining it, and then they're now saying I have to pay them £170.
I bet they are. Scott, what do you think?
Right. So that falls under the consideration period. So you've got up to 10 minutes when you enter and leave a car park to read the terms and conditions of the contract and the signage before, whether you want to stay or not. And what you're referring to is the third-party debt collector letters. So that's where the £170 comes from. And you can safely ignore these third-party debt collector letters, because third-party debt collectors, they don't have any powers whatsoever to enforce alleged parking debts owed to parking firms. So you're past the appeal stage now. What you've got to wait for is what's called a letter before claim. So respond to the letter before claim, setting out that you weren't parked. The cameras clocked your entry and exit time within the consideration period. It should have been cancelled. There is no breach of contract, and put that within the context of your submission to the courts. And a robust submission, they normally fall apart. They normally never get to court if you lodge a robust defence. So do that, and don't engage with third-party debt collectors. They don't have any powers at all. And just respond to the letter before claim, because that's the precursor to court action.
There you go,
Walter. I just wait for the court letter then.
Yeah, but Walter, I would say do go back to them and say to them that I was within the grace period. I was under 10 minutes, therefore you can't take it any further, as Scott said. I think if you go back and cite that, and you said you've got some evidence of all of this as well, I think you'll find they'll probably go away. Often when I hear questions like this myself, and I tell people to go back and cite the facts, often they do go away. They try these things on, because as Scott said a while ago, on many occasions, drivers just pay these tickets without questioning them. So sometimes I do wonder if these tickets are issued, even though they're fully aware that they should not have issued a ticket in the first place. Sometimes I do wonder if that's why they have done that. Walter, I hope that goes well. Go and say all those things. I think you're fine. That will probably go away. If it doesn't, sounds like on the facts as you've given us this evening, that's probably going to be one you're going to win. But hopefully you won't have to argue it too much longer. Scott, I've got another question here from Steve in Middlesbrough. He says, I've appealed a parking ticket, but the company, I guess it means the parking operator, is still chasing me to pay the fine. Can they do this?
You need to follow the appeals process, and you've got the first stage appeals with the parking firm. If that fails, take it to the second stage. Again, if that fails, don't worry about it, because nobody can enforce payment, only a court can. So if you believe that it was issued unfairly, stick to your guns, respond to a letter before claim. If it gets to that stage, don't engage with any third-party debt collectors, and let a judge decide. A lot of these cases, they just fall apart once a robust defence has been lodged. And don't feel as though you have to pay it to make it go away. And they rely on people not knowing how to successfully lodge appeals and stick to their guns on it.
I think the other thing I'd add to that, Scott, as well, is that when you appeal to Poplar, by way of example, which most people will do in this route, the operator must stop chasing you for payments. That's what the rules say. So they are not supposed to chase you. And the advice given in this situation, if you've got an operator that is chasing you, is to go off to the British Parking Association, the BPA, Scott's mentioned them already, and make a complaint, lodge a complaint, tell them the operator is doing it. In my experience, they will go to that operator and tell them to stop, because they are not supposed to take that action. Scott, we're out of time, but thank you very much. All really useful information. We'll do this all again. Parking tickets, although some people say they're boring, they're interesting because so many people get them. So thanks for all that information. That's going to help loads and loads of our listeners. And again, we'll do it again sometime very soon.